No, absolutely, and I think one of the incredible things about making a film and preparing it today into Derek's beautiful archive was this treasure trove of beautiful art objects, because the scripts and all the books which he makes, both to document the film and also in the process of scripting, are absolutely painfully and florid and amazing things to find. So it was a great pleasure to go into the National Film Archive and to bring these, as it were, sort of lost treasures into the light, because they've been kept in dark for quite a bit, actually. So, yeah, it was a wonderful thing to do.
It was sort of set the tone, really, for the next 9 years. I went to see him in a rather orthodox fashion, because he was putting Caravaggio together in 1985, and I went to his flat in Charing Cross Road in London, and he opened the door with a camera in front of his face. And the entire conversation that we had, which was supposed to be a sort of 10-minute casting interview, which sort of went on, well, for the next 9 years, really. But I don't think he ever took his camera down. I just thought he was someone I wanted to hang out with for a couple of weeks. It was very blessed.
Who's working back?
Well, Derek was a painter. He knew all about what it was to work alone. But he was a phenomenally gregarious individual, and he was a very socialized person. And community was incredibly important to him. And I honestly believe that he made films in order to have good company. And he got good company together to make his films. He knew that the two went hand in hand, and that you really can't have one without the other. And I think that we all learned from him. Simon and I and Isaac are, in a way, we're his kindergarten. We started making films with him. We didn't make cinema before we started working with him. And he taught us this habit, and I've never lost it. You know, this knowledge that with good company you can do anything, and you can't do much without it. There you are. No, I'm not nervous, and I have no idea. But more importantly, I am one of the recipients of the Teddy Award last night, and that's the award that I really care about.
Derek?
Why? Well, what could be better than to be celebrated with your family for doing what you really love doing, completely outside of any idea of competition or anything regular or packaged, completely understood by our audience. You know, it's a dream, really. Our audience, I mean, Derek, the audience for Derek's films was always incredibly strong, and still is in Berlin. It was really always a family party for us when we used to come here. I first came to Berlin, the city, and the film festival with Caravaggio, the first film I ever made, 22 years ago. It's a real trip to come back with this film about Derek. People keep saying to me, well, you're here with Derek. And I think, well, yeah, as usual.
I mean, it's great to make another film with Derek.
Yeah, and he's in it. That's the thing. I think for those who haven't seen our film, they might think, oh, how interesting, or whatever, a film about Derek by the people who love him. It's so much more than that, because in the heart of our film is Derek himself, which anybody who knew him or ever saw him in an interview knows is the major star attraction. Much more interesting than any of his films or writings or anything, or certainly any of us, was Derek himself, and he's right in the heart of our film. And the letter in the film that we used for the film was an interesting sort of kickstart to this project, in fact, because Colin McCabe made the interview with Derek 2 years before he died in 1992, when he had very nearly died and had rallied, and very much was aware was living in what he called borrowed time. In fact, one of those beautiful gold albums is called Borrowed Time, and there was a point at which he was going to call the garden Borrowed Time. And they made this interview very much in the spirit of a letter in a bottle to send to the future. So there was always this possibility to make a film based on this, with this material. And then in 2002, I was asked by the Edinburgh Film Festival and Vertigo magazine to deliver a thing they called the Derek Jarman Memorial Lecture, which I did. I wrote this piece, which was quite widely published in The Guardian in truncated form, and also in Critical Quarterly and Vertigo. And the interesting thing about that is not the letter itself, but the response to it. Because the response to it was really overwhelming, not just from people who said, we've never heard of this person, and why have we never heard of them, and why can we not get his films on DVD anywhere, but our friends and our collaborators saying, where have we all been? What have we been doing for the last 8 years? Why have we been so quiet? Isn't it time for us to rally again? And this was really a sparking point. And it was at this point that we started talking about this project. And so we had these 3 tentpoles. We had the interview with Derek, we had my letter as the text, and we had Isaac's extraordinary images, his directorship of the project. And that's really all you have. Well, as you can see in the film, it was something that Derek said, and I hesitate to say joked about, because Derek joked about a lot of things, and his jokes were almost always half joking. There was always, he would say something in some extravagant statement like, when I die, I would like to be completely forgotten and my works to just go. And of course, half of that is absolute rubbish. And he would love the idea of us all sitting here talking about him again endlessly. A film called Derek, it's like, he would love all of that. But at the same time, I think he was sincere. I think that he couldn't. Maybe he had, as Tarkovsky says, each man has more idea of his own future than he cares to admit. Maybe he had a sense that there would be this sort of cultural amnesia that seems to have occurred over the last decade. My analogy for it is it's like a trapdoor closed and this carpet went over it. It's very difficult to really get any sense of him over the last 10 years, and we're trying to change that. I think, well, first of all, I'd say just watch the film. You get to be in his presence yourself. I think mystifying him is not the point. Giving any sense that, encouraging any sense that what has passed is some mythological beast that will never live again, that is not useful for any of us, because of course he was unique, we're all unique, but, everyone is unique, and every artist is unique, but what he is, and this is where history comes in, is he is, when he was alive, he was the last in a long and honourable tradition of outsider artists working with within a kind of classical repertory that is not honoured within their own lifetime, but is honoured later. And it feels as if those threads were cut, and we are trying to pick them up. In that, he's not exotic, he's just a tendency, and so we're looking at the tendency. And it's important that people feel that they can touch that tendency and carry it on themselves. But beyond that, he was a particularly joyful, mischievous, erudite, companionable person who we were lucky enough to hang out with.